All right, howdy. Welcome back to Windley Mania, the greatest podcast you never heard of, brought to you by the greatest band that you also have never heard of. That band being Windley. You have to follow at Windley_band on all the socials to keep up with the world of Windley. I, of course, am the best in the world, Andrew Reidner. And with me, as always, no one. That's right, folks. Absolutely no one as I record this intro and outro in the storage unit on this beautiful Sunday afternoon. The weather's warming up. Time has moved forward, which caught me off guard this morning. But I was joined yesterday by my good friend, my dear good friend, Sean Eley, who, of course, I met 5 years ago after I started to date his daughter. So, of course, the lovely Savannah, who was on our the Valentine's Jeopardy episode. So you can go listen to that if you would like to get to I'm going to just slowly have her whole family just rotate in and out on the show. We're just going to talk to everyone of the Eley clan. But the thing about Sean is that he is an avid comic book fan. I'm also a big comic book fan. I've done an episode talking about the comics I was like reading one time. So one thing we do when we get together, me and Sean do by the way, haha, is we'll just talk comics, old stuff, maybe what he's been reading. He is a huge G.I. Joe fan. I think we've mentioned that before, again on the Valentine's episode. But we just chat for about an hour about comics. I get into his sort of a history with the medium, his what he loves about it, stuff that maybe he doesn't like, and of course he's an artist himself, and the stuff he's created over the years, and we just sort of get into it, kind of like it's some stuff we go deep on, some stuff we kind of stick to the surface, but it's just a nice little fun little conversation about comics. So that's about it. I think I've said what I needed to say to give this whole conversation a stage. So, without further ado, yep, that's right, the conversation. Sean Eley.
Sean Eley. That's me.
That's the nickname that I like. That nickname, Seanald.
Seangelo.
Seangelo. Yeah. Is there any other ones I should be aware of?
Sean Bon Jovi.
That's good. I've never heard of that. So,
just as handsome.
So the one thing we do usually is you and I, we talk about comics sometimes. Mm-hmm. We both really like comic books.
Yeah.
So I figured that we should do it maybe in front of a microphone.
Sounds good.
So that's the idea.
Hey, I mean, there's a lot of comic fans out there, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I did this once before. I thought I had enough episodes banked for like a month or two, mm-hmm. and then I was missing a week, so I just did one where I talked about like just comic books I was reading at the time because I had literally nothing else to talk about.
Right, no, I understand. I always enjoy the subject.
Yeah. So, but how did you get into the medium?
Well, as a young kid, they used to have, if you just went to any sort of like 7-Eleven or whatever, they used to literally have the spinning racks with comics on them. No sleeves or any of that stuff. So I would almost always, from the time I was very little, we would go to, like, say, a 7-Eleven or whatever, and you would you might get candy or whatever, but you'd also get the cat. No, not the cat. You'd also get, you'd pick up a few comics and stuff like that. And of course, most of it was back then DC and Marvel. Wasn't a lot of independent or anything like that. Matter of fact, I don't think there was any. It was just those big two. And so, I kept up on at the time, the Fantastic Four was my favorite as a little kid. I always liked the Human Torch, and Spider-Man was always a favorite. I think he's a favorite to everybody. Batman and Robin. Back then, the Justice League was big. It was a lot more lighthearted than it is now. But we had them all doing things very colorful, and a lot of kids like that. And the whole sidekick thing, I think, was like you could put yourself into being like Aqualad or Robin or whatever, whichever superhero you like the most, you could kind of picture yourself as the sidekick. So getting into the comics was like a real boy's adventure. It was real fun, real good.
No, time. Was that in Ohio? Like, you're from Ohio, right?
Right, originally. Yeah.
So,
yeah. But that was everywhere that I know of. I mean, like I said, this was back before there was even comic shops per se that I remember. I mean, I don't know when the first comic shops really popped up, but that wasn't until I wasn't aware of those until probably the late 70s, early 80s. And I didn't even start visiting them until I was actually 16 and I could drive and then get my own comics and stuff like that. I'd always still just, pick them up from, the dime stores or wherever you wanted to call them.
Yeah. Newsstands.
Yeah, yeah, they did. Yeah, that's right. The newsstands did sell some of them, magazine places, but yeah. But
the direct thing was I think that was 1972 when it
could have been
originally started.
I remember when I was always kind of confused when they would have with the Marvel comics. They'd have one would have the barcode, or they would just have like a picture of Spider-Man, and I was always like, how do you scan that? I didn't really understand it at the time, but that was what you were talking about there.
Yeah. Was there I know there's one book we're going to be probably talking about for a while, but
that's up to you. I mean, I collected it all. Like I said,
was there one book in particular that that really got when you first saw it, you were like, this is what I like now?
Well, it was like I said, it was always the superhero stuff, and then when I was about, I want to say I was probably about 14, and believe it or not, I was babysitting some kids, just doing that on a whim, make a little bit of extra money, and they were younger, and they had G.I. Joe number 17, and I don't know, just something about it caught me, and I started reading it, and it was just, I don't know, it was just well done. It was really neat, and I remember the first part was like Hawk, the commander of the G.I. Joe team, had been shot in the back by Cobra Commander, and he's laying there in the street, and is he going to make it or isn't he? And I was like, well, I want to find out how this all happened. So we went to some of the they wasn't really convention places, but they would just be like, what do you call them? Like the markets, the bazaar markets, like flea markets and all that.
Okay, yeah,
so my mom would take me to the flea markets, and it didn't take me long. I was able to pick up all the back issues. And so technically I started collecting G.I. Joe from number 17, but I quickly got 1 to 16, and I then got a subscription at issue, well, it was right away. I think it was issue, I want to say issue 18 or 19. And just from then on, I got it regularly. And then, like I said, when I became 16, was able to drive and all that, then I started going to the comic shops and picking up that issue regularly. And sure enough, I collected all the way to 155 when they ended it at that time.
That was the first when Larry Hama stopped.
Larry Hama, yeah, I think it's Hama, but I'm not sure. Yeah, Larry Hama wrote it for the most part from issue 1 to 155, and there was some fill-in writers every once in a while and stuff like that. So there was a few that he doesn't remember because he didn't do them and doesn't really consider them part of his canon. He'll tell you that. But other than that, yeah, he's pretty much been they call him the godfather of G.I. Joe, the guy from, pretty much, and still going, by the way, with last issue, as of now, is issue 304 that I'm aware of.
Yeah. Was there a particular store you went to? Did you only go to one, or did you try to drive to a bunch if one store was missing something, maybe?
Well, not then. Back then, it seemed pretty regular. I think they did things different then. Before it was like, I think the guys just had like a regular, the comic shop owners I'm talking about here, they would just have like regular orders that would just show up. And, if you snoozed, you lose, you missed it, whatever, but they would put them out on the shelves. And I never did really, back when I was in Ohio, have a pull or anything. I just would go there and pick up the comic I wanted, and that was it. And sometimes I pick up other stuff too. I remember for a while there I was really into Grendel. That was when the indie stuff was coming out. And that was really good read, but yeah, real adult, just to warn anybody out there. Real adult.
Yeah. I don't think I've read the series. I've just read the he did it was almost like a graphic novel of just the Hunter Rose story.
Yeah.
But it was summarized, essentially. I think it was 32 pages.
I literally did have the first 3 issues that he did, and I honestly forget the name, but it was black and white, and there was other stories in it, but he did 3 of them, then hated them, so he never put them into really comic form. And then I think they released the Hunter Rose story. It was in a larger format, like a magazine format at first, and then it's been re-released in comic size. But then after that, he started the Grendel series with the girl Grendel, and I that's sad. I forget her name. I think it was Christine Spar. I don't know if that's right or not, but it was really good, really, and the art was really cool at the time. It was really edgy in '80s. I mean, if you ever read the first 12 issues with that artist, you'll be like, oh yeah, that looks like Duran Duran cover for their for like the stuff that they would do. Yeah.
Was there? You remember like did you ever like go to conventions or stuff like that?
Oh, I did go to later on. Matter of fact, I do remember. Oh God, what was that fella's name? Something Marshall. Do you know who I'm talking about? There was an artist.
Marshall Rogers?
Yeah, he died of cancer. Okay. But I got to meet him. This was in Ohio, and it was one of the first big comic conventions, and they had toys there too, a lot of Migos and things like that. At that point, they were in the past, but it was neat to see them all. And so I got to meet him and talk to him. And this is, of course, sadly, he died shortly thereafter, I think, from cancer. But it was neat to meet him and see an actual guy. That was my first brush with a guy who actually did the comic. So that was kind of neat, and I really enjoyed his stuff. I thought he was a really good G.I. Joe artist. You could tell he really looked at the toys and like drew from them. I mean, most of the people just wing it, but it's like their version of Scarlet doesn't really match the toys as much. But when he drew it, you could tell even the backpacks, they looked like the toys, and of course the toys were so big the rage then that it was kind of neat. Kids like that, so, and we like seeing that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So you're an artist yourself.
Uh-huh.
Did you ever take samples up there to the conventions or anything like that?
I never did, and I probably should have. But the closest I came was when I was at Ohio State University. I was able to do a comic, a daily comic called the Pimento Brothers for the Ohio State Lantern, and I did that for about 2 years until I graduated. And it got a lot of good feedback, but unfortunately nobody ever came to my door and said, hey, we want to turn this into something big. I kind of wish they would have, but I guess it just wasn't. It wasn't enough to draw anybody with money to fund it.
Can you explain the Pimento Brothers? First of all, that's a great name.
It's three brothers and their roommate named Matt.
Yeah.
And they all they just get into zany adventures, and it's very quirky, very, very strange. Like I said, people seem to like it. I would do one of the things I would do is bring other characters from the other comic strips that were current at the time and make fun of them. And then, of course, in their comics, they would do something to my Pimento Brothers. They would draw my Pimento Brothers and do something to them. So there was always kind of like this little fun rivalry going on where we would make fun of each other's cartoon characters. And of course, all the styles were wildly different. So I would try to draw like theirs. They'd try to draw like mine, and it was just like these weird universes that shouldn't even exist together, but it was fun. Yeah, you didn't know that? Yeah, I can show you some of the comics. I still got them.
Did you have like a particular style you were trying to chasing? Anyone in particular?
No, I think my style is pretty much my own. Wouldn't you say so, Savannah? I can't. There was never. I don't know how to explain my style. It's, but it definitely wasn't. I don't think you can compare it to anybody else's. I really don't. I'm not trying to be modest or
well, that's not modest. That's more.
Or the opposite, whichever. But yeah, I can't. There was really nobody that was my inspiration, even though there was a lot of big names out there. But even back then, they told us. I got a Bachelor of Fine Arts, so our instructors would say, don't copy anybody else. So we knew if you try to draw like somebody else, it was just, that's a great tribute to them, but it's their work, not yours. And so I just always drew my characters the way I drew them. And, I just my own cartoon, very cartoony style, obviously, because it was a cartoon for like the funny pages. So my characters were like that. They'd have the big eyes boinking out of their heads and their tongues sticking out and their hair standing up if anything went crazy. And, half the time I would blow them up and their faces would be torn off and they would, there'd be a skeleton underneath. And of course they'd still be alive. They survived. This was before Kenny, by the way, South Park and Kenny. So my characters were always back for the next cartoon strip, no matter how much they got blown up or dismembered or whatever.
It was just like...
Yeah.
keep going.
Yeah, they just kept going. That's the cartoon world, you know. You can drop Wile E. Coyote off a cliff, and he's gonna fall to his doom, get smashed flat. He's still gonna pop back though, and that's the way the Pimento Brothers were. They always pop back.
You definitely sent some off to publishers.
I did, and I only had one that ever really. And this was, of course, when I started doing this. The newspapers were still kind of going strong, but it was dying down. And I got a guy who one of the publishers said, "Yeah, your stuff's pretty good." He goes, but obviously for a I don't know how to explain it. It was a rejection letter, but he said you got good ideas, but it isn't kind of fitting with our. With the newspaper, that they're trying to do. And of course, when you read the dailies back in the day when I was young, it was like Calvin and Hobbes, Charlie Brown, all that stuff, All in the Family. There was a lot of family stuff. I remember that. So mine was I think mine was just a little too, I don't want to say edgy, but it's adult, but I mean, I tried to tone it down for them too. I actually sent in. I tried the Pimento Brothers first, then I sent in this thing called Jurassic Jake.
Oh.
And it was one of the Pimento Brothers back in the dinosaur times, Jake Pimento, and then I introduced some of the other characters in different ways. But it was him just interacting with dinosaurs, and I tried to keep it family friendly and stuff like that. But then for some reason, it didn't really take off. But one of my favorite characters was my pterodactyl called Noodles. He was smart mouthed character who'd always have something to say to the other characters. Yeah, what's that?
Mr. Beans.
Yeah, well, Mr. Beans, the Triceratops, and those two would always get in trouble. And of course, they'd tear up Jake's house and just cause him. And Jake, of course, was a single guy, so he's always trying to date. And his name's Gigolo Jake, so he's always trying to hook up with the ladies. And of course, those two would keep him from having any real interaction with the ladies. He'd ruin it, or they'd ruin it. He wasn't as smooth as he'd like to think.
Yeah. Jurassic Jake.
I just
want to read this stuff now.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, I got it. I can pull it out for you. It's on DeviantArt if you ever want to check it out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it's under Sean Eley 1. Yeah, I got a lot of my stuff on there, a lot of stuff, and I haven't looked at that in forever. So it's like, but I'm assuming they haven't taken it down or anything. It's not like you got to pay dues or anything like that. But yeah, I believe it's under SeanEley 1. I think that's what it's under.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was the adult content like? Were you like this like?
Well, the boys they were college kids, so they would be drinking and thinking about women and I mean sex without going into detail. Of course, I wasn't showing them getting up, but
I don't know if
it
this
was
is going to, like,
it's not
Robert
one you'd
Crumb
read in
territory.
church or anything like that. Not safe for work, but it wasn't.
About how the salmon baby?
The salmon baby? What?
Salmon baby.
Sam and his girlfriend.
Salmon baby?
Oh, Roxy.
Roxy was based on you and Mom.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, that's right. It was.
He always was cheating.
No, actually, Sam wasn't a cheater. Sam was more like a emo punk guy with really blonde like hair like Sting or Billy Idol, and so he was always depressed and stuff like that. And his girlfriend was kind of one of those neurotic types, so they worked out. But I don't think I ever had him cheat on her or anything like that. Not that I remember. Now Gigolo Jake would have. He was the guy that'd be chasing all the ladies. He couldn't be held down by just one lady. But of course he wasn't as smooth as he thought, so he never really scored. He was kind of like Beavis and Butthead in that way. He'd run into a lamppost and think he scored, but he really hadn't.
So, do you have like a particular? I'm going to assume it's probably like around the time you were getting into it, but do you have like a particular favorite like era of comics?
Yeah, you know what? I know the one thing that drew me as a kid, and it was always the colors. There was just something about it. A lot of comics now are very what would you call it? Not monotone, but the hues are very neutral. There are a lot of grays. There's just no color. There's no life. And I know that's a lot because a lot of them are more mature now and stuff like that. But what used to always draw me was just the colors. And the one thing about G.I. Joe was they always kept that, even though the guys would like a lot of them would wear camouflage and stuff like that. They really did. They kind of it kind of became a joke. They kind of did look like the Village People at the end of the day. A lot of them. You had the Indian. You had the mustachioed Marine who could have passed for a guy in a leather bar. You know, you had all that stuff. You had the punk bikers. I mean, it was there, but the colors were always there. And the show that the accompanying show by Sunbow that Marvel also produced, it really added to that. So we would watch. You know, you'd read the comic, you'd watch the show, and the colors were just vibrant and alive and. You know, it's just I've always liked that, and I think that's why I always like superheroes too. It's just you know the colors and stuff. And in reality, of course, nobody in their right mind would wear a cape or you know run around in really bright colors because you're going to get picked off pretty quick. You'd probably, you know, it'd probably be all camo or black like ninjas or something like that. You know, and of course, I think a lot of superheroes are getting more like that. And then of course you got the guys like the Savage Dragon who make the most sense. He's wearing his police uniform, you know. To work and fighting, I mean, it makes 100% sense. But I just was always drawn to the hues. To me, art is it's not just the lines that I love. It's the vibrant colors, the hues, you know, just all that coming out at you. You know, using everything in your palette that you can. That's always been a draw for me. And I think G.I. Joe and superheroes and all that always kind of had that.
Yeah. You have a favorite Joe artist?
Yeah, I did like Frank Marshall a lot. Let's see. Yeah,
Marshall
we did. I remember. Michael Golden. Oh my gosh,
That's-
Michael Golden was. Yeah, he was the best. I wish Art Adams had done a couple. I don't think he ever did though.
Oh, really? Yeah, that would have been awesome. Actually,
And believe it or
Art
not, let's see. Who's the guy that did Spawn?
Todd McFarlane.
Yeah, Todd McFarlane. Believe it or not, before Spawn or even before Spider-Man, he was still working at Marvel at the time. He did a few G.I. Joes, and they were okay. I don't think the inkers did him much credit, but
I think when he inks his own stuff, honestly.
Yeah. So they actually, I remember one time they thought his art was so bad that they had another artist redo his issue. Yeah. And then years later, when they ended with issue 155, like a couple months later, they came out with the issue that he had actually done, but had been replaced by another guy. I believe it's issue 60. I might be wrong on that, but then they released how Todd McFarlane did it, and you look at it, and you go, "Yep, that's Todd McFarlane." You know, it's just his style. Nobody, you know, you can't compare his. He's like Liefeld, you know. You just know their stuff when it's in your face, you know.
Well, the thing is, like, there is like the whole like, you know, Liefeld shit's like ugly or it just doesn't make sense.
You know what though? But I think that's why he was popular, not because it was ugly, but he had his own way of doing things.
Yeah,
he really did. Now he did get really crazy with some of the skeletal understructure on some of these men and women. It got really weird, but when he first started out, it was kind of neat. He was kind of the pouch guy. I kind of attribute to him all the pouches. Now G.I. Joe, of course, had pouches, but Liefeld got to the point where you had pouches around your head, around your legs, around your, you know, you going this way, that way. It was like military orgasm. I don't know what you would call it, but it was just insane.
Yeah, well, he made. I think he did like a. He did like a cover. I think it was a cover swipe. I can't remember of what book specifically, but he made like a character that was just nothing but pouches. And I think his name was like Pouch Man or something.
Really, that's funny.
But I always liked his. Weirdly enough, I like the Liefeld penciled McFarlane ink combo. Like I think that's like some of his best looking stuff. But,
well, I just remember when they finally gave Batman, they took his utility belt actually had pouches instead of the little pill things.
Yeah.
You know, like the Mego character had the little pill, and you're like, what? That's just a belt with, I don't know, like supposedly he had everything in those little pill things. But the pouches made a lot more sense to me, and it kind of made Batman a little more military, you know, kind of gave him a little more military feel, which would make sense, obviously.
I love the Mazzucchelli look in year one. Just like the very stripped down. He's got a couple pouches.
That year one was good.
Yeah.
It really was.
I watched this like very bizarre. This is back on McFarlane. I watched this, and I want to see if you can maybe like any of these like stick out in your memory. I watched this very bizarre video at a convention from 1993, and it was a debate between Peter David and Todd McFarlane.
I heard about that. Matter of fact, I've
moderated by George Perez.
I've got old wizards that talk about that endlessly, and supposedly Todd McFarlane made a real fool of himself. I've never seen him, but I think he just wanted to like just act crazy. What was he? He was probably in his 20s then, anyway.
Yeah. So,
but poor Peter David didn't know what to do with that. I mean, he was this poor married man, and he's just like looking at this guy like, "What's this guy on? Acid? What?" I mean, that's my understanding.
I think Peter David won the debate. Like he.
That's what I hear.
He was. The whole story was that like I think it stemmed from McFarlane was doing Hulk with Peter David.
That's right.
McFarlane left, and that was when Image started.
And there was some bad blood between them over that. Yeah.
Dale Keown took over Incredible Hulk, and it was still like part of that. He didn't take over the whole book. He was still with Peter David, but that was still part of the big run. And then they offered Image offered like Dale Keown like a really small. It was like 8-10 pages for like $10,000.
Oh wow!
And 92 money.
Yeah, right.
So I mean, he left to do that, and then like Peter David also had like this column in Comic Buyer's Guide, and it was like But I Digress, what it was called. And he had like a lot of criticisms about Image, and it like culminated in this big pan. Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous.
They were butting heads there. I don't know if they're still that way, but there was a lot of bad blood between a lot of the writers, inkers, all that, and artists, I should say, and like Marvel, and of course Marvel and DC were both known for really basically taking the money and run and leaving everybody in the poorhouse. And but somehow during all that, McFarlane, Byrne, all these guys became like millionaires. It was just like, and that was impressive because that did not happen that I'm aware of in the 60s, 70s, or any of that stuff. Matter of fact, from what I understand, the guys that created Superman died pretty much penniless or whatever. But
it was like they got like $130 for the character.
Yeah.
And then when Superman the movie came out, there was a lawsuit, and they got a yearly pension for $20,000 a year.
Yeah, isn't that sad?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd take it. Don't get me wrong, but when
but
you
compared
create
to how much money Superman is worth, $20,000 a year.
I mean, Superman is like, he's like the big A. He's he's the one to beat. He really is, and Batman's of course close second. Some people would say he's first, but I'm just talking about because of the time frame and just the longevity and the millions of stories surrounding this guy. Everybody wanted a shot at Superman at one point or another.
Yeah.
I think only Frank Miller hated him, though. Frank Miller always tried to make him suck. I don't know what it was. He hated that guy. Superman? In my humble opinion, yeah. You read The Dark Knight, and Superman's so wimpy, and it's just like, oh, I can't do this or that because of justice or something. I don't know, anyhow. But yeah, I digress too.
Have a debate.
Yeah, just don't ever give Frank Miller Superman. He'll just make him into the big puss.
I don't think he's interested now. Did you see I think it was last year, he had these like pretty insane looking like variant covers, and it was like if you put a piece of Frank Miller art in the microwave, like it was just like. He did a Wolverine that I kind of liked, but it was still very bizarre. People were, as they do, just throwing.
Oh, Sam Keith, talk about bizarre Wolverines. I'm telling you though, but we loved him too. But if you really think about it, it's odd proportions and stuff. But people loved that when he was doing the shredding of their uniforms and the little strings, just whirling off them and everything else. That really, we didn't have that before.
Yeah.
But so that was kind of neat stuff. Let's see.
Which one is that? Is that the?
Oh yeah, that's that. I know who that is. Miller. Yeah, Wonder Woman.
Is that the Frank Miller?
Yeah,
one?
It's a Frank Miller Wonder Woman. I actually like the headband on her like that. I think it makes her look pretty bad, eh? But the one thing I did like about that is he put Wonder Woman and Superman together, which makes sense because they're both going to live forever. Superman and poor Lois Lane. Lois Lane in reality would get so old. Oh yeah, I remember that. That's hilarious. Oh yeah, that's his version of Supergirl. Talk about right up the yin yang. Let's see. This is World's Finest with Superwoman, I believe it is. And Wonder Woman, and boy, oh my gosh, yeah, that would not be fun to fight.
Personally, I think Frank Miller has earned to do whatever he wants.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Point. Yeah.
Same thing with
he can do whatever he wants.
The Swamp Thing guy.
Alan Moore.
Yes, sometimes their stuff does suck, but
it can't be all.
But they made such masterpieces. Yeah, they can't all be winners. And also sometimes things are appreciated years after the fact.
Sure.
I found that as much as people complain about a lot of these recent movies, Marvel movies, I actually enjoy them for what they are. It's like representations of comic book heroes that I grew up with. So I haven't found too many movies recently, The Flash and all that. Despite the weird CGI, it was very weird, but it's a comic book. You know what I mean? And they're having fun with it and whatever. And I think we take it too serious. Now, I probably won't see Madam Web or the Elementals just because you're talking about such obscure characters. I think that's a big mistake. You're talking about characters that nobody even knows unless you are like diehard comic book. You're living comic books literally every day. That stuff is just too.
Is there a particular character or group you would like to see as a movie?
Well, definitely I'm excited to see the Fantastic Four. I'm sad to see that they won't ever be interacting with like Iron Man or
They won't?
or Captain America. No, if they
Oh, it's gonna
do,
be
it'll
in
be
the
new.
60s?
It'll be new versions of them. Because I mean, obviously in the Marvel movies, I'm not talking about the comic books. I mean, that stuff's all long gone. I'm talking about like with the movies and stuff. I mean, it's like it's kind of sad that because I grew up with all these guys. They're all in the same world, interacting, and the same thing with DC. Batman, Superman. They're all in the same. Reality and stuff about the same, ages, time frames, what would you say between 20 and 40? I mean, I know Reed Richards, Doctor Strange were always supposed to be older because they had the little bit white tufts on the side of their head. But the rest of them were all supposed to be young, Yeah.
So any specific character that hasn't happened in a movie yet that you would like to see?
Yeah, I definitely want to see the Fantastic Four.
Well, that's happening, and
Yeah, I know
it
it's
hasn't.
happening. I guess we're all waiting for the X-Men, aren't we?
Yeah.
I mean,
well, I'm saying, is there any like other like ones that haven't happened yet that you would like to see?
I'd like to see him do a good G.I. Joe movie. That's for sure.
Okay, that's true.
I definitely like to see that. I mean, that they Transformers craps gold. And I wanted to say the S word.
You can say shit. You
Yeah.
can work blue.
It's like, what character has not had a movie yet that you're thinking they should really get a movie made about them?
Well, it depends on what. I mean, are we talking about like? So obviously, the Fantastic Four were maybe before, but not in this universe. Is that
Well,
what
I'm saying, like, I don't know, like.
I thought they did good with?
Why am I
the-
thinking of Dead Man? Dead Man doesn't have a movie.
But that's the problem. He's another one that's very obscure to most people. Now, I do know who Dead Man is just because he's been around
yeah.
forever. But if they put a movie right now and it was all based on Dead Man. You know how many
I'd go
people?
see it.
Most people, yeah, you and I would because we know who he is.
Yeah,
but
Dead Man
we are.
rocks.
I guarantee you, we are in the minority.
Yeah, but so is there any? But do you have like one that even though people won't see it, would you want to see a shipwreck movie? with just shipwreck?
Not by himself. No, see, that's a mistake. I think they made a mistake with. They made a mistake with Snake Eyes because they didn't even put him in the costume to the last 2 seconds of the movie. I knew that was not that always backfires. That's one of the biggest complaints people have. Nobody wants to see a movie about Peter Parker. You know what I mean?
Just Peter Parker.
They want to see him in his Spider-Man outfit as much as possible. So Peter Parker obviously is who Spider-Man is, and it's great. But you can't just have a movie about Peter Parker. It'll flop. You know what I mean? It's just nobody wants to see that. That's what they did wrong with Snake Eyes. They was like, hey, it's all about this Asian guy running around, and at the end of the day, he puts on his suit and rides off on a motorcycle for 2 nanoseconds. Who cares about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
They actually did better with Scarlet. Like she was actually in her outfit
Okay.
a little more now. If you're talking about other characters that I'd like to see, I wouldn't mind seeing the Sandman, the newer version, the Vertigo version of Sandman.
Oh, well, they got the show.
They do got the
Yeah.
show, but it would be neat to see that translated to the big screen and them. They made
That's so much stuff to fit in a movie, though.
It is, but they made some, and in that series they made some poor casting choices as far as I'm concerned. I know they
I only
want
saw
to be
the first episode.
Yeah, I saw them all. They were good. Don't get me wrong. It just did. I personally, because I watched the Lucifer series, would have liked to see them use the same actor in that, and think that would have been cool. And I like those nods when they do that. Like in the Flash movie when they actually made a nod to Christopher Reeves, who's passed now, but they showed his Superman. They showed the girl that played Supergirl. They showed all the Batmans. Except for Val Kilmer, who obviously, for the way he's ended up, would not fit. But
What's wrong with him?
Oh, okay. Have you seen him lately? Oh my God,
Yeah,
poor
yeah.
guy. I think he had throat cancer, and oh God, he looks like a mess. I mean, I guess in some realities, Batman could be a mess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe
They got
Bane got a
Bizarro
hold of him
Batman.
and stomped his face. I guess in that reality, I think. But anyway, they had the other guy. It was great. I like that stuff. I think they should do that. And I would have preferred that for the Sandman. Just especially growing up on Sandman like I did. I think I was in my 20s when Sandman came out, and I was getting more involved in the indie works. So I had a lot of Vertigo titles. Wish I'd kept all that stuff for you guys. Like I said, Grendel was still going strong then. There was a few years where he somehow lost the copyright to it or something weird. But then he brought it back with a vengeance, and it was great. And just other things like that. So that Niece was a good time for all that stuff. I really enjoyed.
You never
it.
read Cerebus, did you?
I never have. Yeah, he's like Lone Wolf and Cub. I never read it. I know that everybody talks about how great they are. Frank Miller's Ronin, and then Martha Washington. I know them. I know who they are. Tank Girl. I know all these characters. I just never read them. It just wasn't a draw to me.
You got to read Ronin, though. I got that.
Everybody says it's good.
I think that's a book everyone should read.
Well, it's like, I've never read 300. But I know I'd like it. I know visually it's probably stunning. I've seen some stills from it, or in magazines and stuff like that. But especially back in the day when it was popular. But it's just there's just so much out there, I guess. And like I said, I'm a GI Joe junkie. I probably will be till I die, just because I started with issue 1. As far as I know, I have every issue there, pretty much for the most part, that there is.
Yeah.
Yeah, even have the British stuff where it's called Action Force.
Right.
Because obviously, to a Brit, GI Joe is an American term, so they wanted to give it more of a international kind of flavor there.
Yeah. And there was Mega Force as well, right?
Not for GI Joe, not that I'm aware of.
Well, there was like other I'm trying to remember the one. There was one where there was this great Jack Kirby art for it. I don't know if that was Mega Force or not.
Might have been.
I remember there was a movie called Mega Force. I don't think that was the same thing. I'm thinking of something. But so I know you have the extensive, your extensive GI Joe,
right? And I know Transformers pretty well too, though. I'm not as familiar with every character. There's a lot of characters that don't make appearances hardly ever in comics or books, so I'm not as familiar with like those toys because I never really had them. Like I said, I was 14 when I started collecting the comic. So by the time you're 15 or 16, girls don't want to see guys playing with toys, so it wasn't cool. Matter of fact, the funny thing is, I didn't get back into the toys until my kids came along, and then I started buying the toys and then playing with them all the time, and we'd have castles and all kinds of stuff, and the girls loved the Baroness and Scarlet and all that, so we had all those action figures, and all of a sudden I'm like, man, I'm buying more toys than I ever did when I was a kid.
I got this rock and roll action figure for my daughter.
I know and that's like wink wink, right? It really is like that. It's like, hey, I think I'm playing with it more than my kids, but yeah, we did. We had a lot of adventures with this. Yeah, we did. We had a lot of fun. Tomb Raider was big for the girls. They loved her. Their action figures weren't as good though. They're kind of clunky.
Do you have any I guess Holy Grail is the term. Do you have any like specific books that you're still on the hunt for?
Oh gosh, not really. I mean, like I said, I was for the most part as fortunate up until recently, where the Skybound stuff's really popular, and my comics guy fumbled the ball, so I'm trying to make up for that. It's hard to get Duke. I did get Duke #1 first print, thank God, but I was sweating that one because I'm like, you know what? I mean, not that I'm that big. I do it for the stories, obviously, but I'm at the same time I'm like, why am I want I can have Duke #1, but I don't have Duke #1 because my freaking comic guy is falling down on the job, and I don't know what that was all about. So
things happen.
Things happen. I don't want to give them the benefit of the doubt. I tell you,
I've ran into that problem several times, especially trying to get titles that aren't popular, that aren't DC Marvel Image.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's it. I know. It's like it blew me away because GI Joe is not really what I would call a popular title, but for some reason, because Robert Kirkman's doing it, I mean they're going 5th, 6th, 7th printings on some of these GI Joe titles, and I'm like, you cannot tell me there's that many GI Joe fans out there.
Well, he's just doing the Void Rivals right now.
But
kind of overseeing
the Void Rival, but no, seriously, I'm not lying. The Cobra Commander and the
it's all tied
Duke,
together. I know.
Yeah, that's the thing. They're tied together, but they went to like 70,000 prints and sold out, and then they reprinted second and third prints and fourth. And I mean, these are, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I mean, and as any book collector will tell you, I mean, it's preferable to have the first print, I mean, if I get a Mark Twain 37th print, that's okay and all, but if I get an original Mark Twain book, first print, I mean, I'm going to be a millionaire, that kind of stuff.
Sure.
I mean, I think it's a millionaire, but anyway. Yeah, but probably because there just isn't that many.
There's a crazy, I I'm trying to remember the Thundercats number. There's a new Thundercats book.
Thundercats were cool there for a while. Matter of fact, I think I talked to you about this. They had actually at sometime in the 90s they had Superman meets the Thundercats. It was.
I wonder if I'm trying to.
Yeah, I was like, what?
There was a Transformers Thundercats as well, I think.
Yeah, but it makes sense in a way because when you're dealing with Superman, first of all, is an alien on our planet, so he's gonna meet other aliens that look like cats. Sure,
100 this was from January of 19, so I don't know if this number was bigger because the book didn't come out until a few months later. But it was Thundercats number 1 was 170,000.
Wow.
170, and then 3 more zeros. Yeah. No, just sales. How many books were sold? That was like on a pre-sale.
That's an amazing run. I mean, well, that's 100,000 more than the Duke, and that's that wasn't done by Skybound, was it?
That was Dynamite.
Is it Skybound or is it Skyfall?
Skybound.
Skybound,
which is
okay.
part. That's
I'm saying it
part
right.
of
okay.
Image.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's
right. It's
all
part of
Robert
Image. Right.
Kirkman stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
You read any other stuff from him?
Let's see, Kirkman. No, the only thing I'm aware of is his Walking Dead.
Right.
And just too depressing for me, It's, I mean, I love zombies. Don't get me wrong. For a while there, back in the when the girls were young, we all loved zombie movies, didn't we, Savannah? I mean, I don't know what it was. I guess there's just something really freaky about somebody trying to eat you to death. It's like while you're alive in a way. Yeah.
I mean, like, everyone knew what a zombie was,
Yeah.
but it was.
There was George Romero, and there was a bunch of B zombie movies that nobody cared about. And I mean, I'm being very general, but then when The Walking Dead came out, all of a sudden zombies are the thing. I mean, World War Z, Z Nation. I mean, you name it, it's all over the place. And then it wasn't as much fun. And I didn't like when they got to the point where it was just like, hey, let's see who we can kill this week. It's like I like that character. You know what? Now I'm not invested anymore. You killed everybody. Like everybody got noshed on, nom, nom, nom. I mean, who cares now? They're all dead, I don't care about any of these new characters. It's kind of like if you had the 5th iteration of Iron Man, the 5th person wearing the outfit. It's like, I don't care about that character. Tony Stark's who I care about.
Absolutely. You should check out some Robert Kirkman. Invincible.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. Isn't that just another superhero?
That's what you think going into it.
Yeah.
But then it becomes this big, really cool thing.
Is it comedic?
Yeah, it has some comedy stuff. Oblivion Song, that one's
I didn't want to like with certain things, like with superheroes, like The Boys. Like I read about the premise, and these guys get off on like freaking sexually harassing women and stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't want to watch that. I mean, I guess that's supposed to be edgy. Like in reality, if people had superpowers, they probably would abuse it like that. But I'm just like, I don't want to see them make some poor girl do some stuff because they're superheroes. Some people like that dark stuff.
Yeah.
But to me, the whole point is life's depressing enough. Why do I want to depress myself further, especially with my heroes? Like it's like oh, we found out Captain America was hooking up with Taiwanese hookers when he was overseas. It's like, oh, great. That's what I want to hear about. He's just a man like the rest of us. Oh, great. Yeah. Yeah, I know, right? He's supposed to be a damn hero.
I thought,
I kind of want to. I kind of want to be. I want to learn about people that actually overcome things. Like a hero. That's the definition of a hero. They overcome things. They sacrifice to make things happen. So that all of us can, enjoy life and freedom and all that.
Yeah. Like in here's this transition. Like in Elf Quest, which I know you're a big fan of. As well.
I loved Elf Quest, and then they killed off Cutter, and I'm like, oh, what the hell are you? Why? Why? We know that everybody dies, you know what I mean? Like really, if you really think about it, Batman would have been long dead by now. Spider-Man he'd be a grandfather by now. I mean, that's the truth, but it's like, I don't want to see that. I want to think, it's like Toy Story. The toys just keep on living, it's just,
But it's, did you have a letter to Wendy and Richard Pini in the book? Am I misremembering something? I thought
No, I've had Hama write me back several times, or print my stuff in the comics. Matter of fact, I should write them again for this latest run. Sure. But yeah, I never. My only regret is I never thought of sending a letter back in the day when you had to do it by letter. You couldn't do it by email or anything like that. When the original G.I. Joe was running and people would get their letters printed and stuff like that. But he said it was a lot harder for people to get because G.I. Joe was so popular back in the day when the toys were out and stuff like that they were getting thousands of letters a week, at the bullpen, the Marvel bullpen there, and so they would try to read them all, but they would just it was like Santa Claus coming in with a thing full of letters, just
some of those
big,
are
huge duffel bag.
I love reading the letters.
Oh, I do too. That's why I love having the original comics because some of the letters are just great,
Yeah, especially those letter sections in like the 60s. Those are great.
Yeah.
Just like those, if you thought like people are now just too persnickety or complain about stuff, you should read some of those letters back in the 60s.
God.
Those guys would complain about everything.
Back to Grendel, man. The letters pages.
Yeah.
I mean, you would like these people. Like they must have all been philosophy majors and stuff. Like the letters they wrote, they were so over my head. I'm like trying to understand half the words they were saying. I'm like, and I'm very. I mean, I have a very extensive vocabulary, I mean, but I'm like, oh my god, these guys they were waxing philosophic like beyond belief, and I'm just like, oh my god, existentialism. Whatever. I mean, these guys were all over the place. These are the letters pages, on a freaking comic about a mass murdering psycho. Yeah. I mean, Grendel's a little deeper than that, but yeah.
I've only written one comic book related letter in my life.
Oh, really?
It wasn't to a book. It was, I had to do like I don't remember if it was like 3rd or 4th grade, but I had to write like a business letter. And I wrote, originally it was just like you weren't going to send it, and then they sent it. So I wrote to Paul Levitz because he was editor-in-chief at the time at DC.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, I just wrote about like, I want to write comic books.
Yeah.
And then he wrote back, and that was pretty cool. But
yeah. Well, little known fact, Jim Shooter actually had a G.I. Joe character named after him.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in issue 1, they just had a little blurb that said Shooter, but the face was kind of covered up, looked like a guy with a black beard. Then years later, Jim Shooter became a black female sniper on the G.I. Joe team. Yeah, named Shooter. Yeah, Hama wrote her into something, and she was supposed to be part of the original Joes and died on a mission, one of their original missions, and so she was always remembered. They actually ended up making an action figure of her. That was kind of cool.
Maybe we should ask him about it. We're going to see. I'm going to my first big convention next
You going to
week.
see Jim Shooter there?
Yeah, he's going to be
got to be
there.
old.
Yeah, he's. I'm going to bring He did like the old when he was like 14, 15. He was writing. Some of the stories in Adventure Comics and like Superboy and stuff.
Did McFarlane hate him or something in the 90s or something?
A lot of people didn't like Jim Shooter during that time.
Yeah.
I really liked his era just because, first of all, you got like a lot of the cool stuff. Like aside from Secret Wars, you were getting some of the cool like licensed stuff, but also you were getting these great runs from guys like he was the guys that he pushed like Frank Miller and Walt Simonson, or not pushed, but more so was like, hey, you can write and do the art. Like, you're doing both.
Oh,
now.
Byrne's run on Fantastic Four was just phenomenal when he was writing. And
well, he got taught. I know John Byrne had a lot of issues with Jim Shooter. In fact,
I think he
had like book burning parties or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They could all be contentious, but then again, that's the nature of artists too. Is they get their visions, and you don't want to get in the way of it. Chris Claremont, same thing. Like he felt they were destroying the X-Men, so he got out of there, and then he tried to make a comeback, from what I understand, but I guess it just was never the same.
Claremont.
Yeah. Didn't he leave and then come back or something?
Like later on.
And then Garth Ennis kind of became like somebody big with that, I believe. Like they liked his run for a bit, but I think that's when things started kind of getting, I don't want to say weird, but I lost interest in the X-Men by the time Ennis came on. He did Preacher and a few other things. I think he did better at Vertigo type stuff. I don't know, you can really make the X-Men Vertigo. I mean, I guess you could. I mean, Wolverine's, he's one of those characters like Batman. You could probably write dark or light, whichever, but I mean, the guy does cut people up with, razor sharp claws.
Yeah. So are you still continuing to try to, create something comic related?
Oh yeah, I am. Gosh, believe it or not, that's like been my project for the past few years, based on something I was doing as a kid. I always thought when I was a kid I was going to be a director, like movies, and and of course then you see Star Wars and Indiana Jones and all that, and it's like, oh, this is great, and of course film's a great visual telling thing. But then as I got older, I lean more towards anime, because like in anime, and just regular cartoons like G.I. Joe on Sunbow and stuff like that, the characters can do everything and still be believable. Like, whereas when you do superheroes in live action with actors, you got to transition from Spider-Man being a normal guy who is like me, who probably has back pain in real life, the actor and stuff like that, to flinging himself across buildings and skyscrapers. You got to cut to CGI, but I always preferred like the more anime type stuff where characters get defined that way. So I realized if I ever wanted to do anything that would become visual, I wanted to lean more towards that. And then I realized, I was like, well, I'm probably never going to have the patience to do anime. So it kind of went back to my original premise, which was something like the Pimento Brothers. But newspapers are dead, and it's very hard to get anything going with comics. So
that'd be a great webcomic.
That's what, yeah. So that's what Sierra told me a few years back, because I just kept writing my stuff about my old characters. These aren't the Pimento Brothers I'm talking about. I'm talking about like more of a drama, comedy, action kind of fun stuff, and anything goes kind of thing, but still, a little more serious. If people died, they would die. So anyway, Sierra told me that. My oldest said, you do webcomic, that, and some people have gotten popular doing that. So I'm like, yeah, you know what? The nice thing about a webcomic, it doesn't matter whether it makes it or not. You can still just keep putting your vision out there, And if it does, make it great. If it doesn't, unless society collapses and the internet goes down forever, it's going to be out there. So that's kind of cool. Yeah. But yeah, I've been working on something, and I'm almost done with the writing part, and then I'm going to try to get hopefully a program that will translate well. And 15 years I've been working hard on it. It's the problem is it's undergone some transformations.
It doesn't. You just rewrite. I feel like when you're writing, I mean, it's good to rewrite, but it's also like there is a point where you need to have the confidence in it, and just
my negative,
and with comics you can just keep you can kind of
my negative
evolve.
Is that I'm very detail oriented, but I hate to say it, you almost just got to let that go, because first of all, the things that I'm interested in detail wise, probably 99% people aren't going to be as interested in that. Right. So my thing is now is I've got to take everything that I like about what I'm working on and strip it down. And the detail stuff's still back there. If anybody ever asks me, I can whip it out, because there is people like that, like Larry, like let's go back to Larry Hama. People are like, what about this with G.I. Joe? What about this? And he's just like, no, I just make it up as I go along. He basically is a winged guy, and it makes people so dissatisfied. I'm the opposite. If somebody asks me, well, what about this? I can go, well, there's that. This is if I ever make it, or even if I don't. Let's say I have 10 people that give a crap. I can tell them this is where that came from. Yeah. And you don't necessarily have to spoon feed everybody every portion of this stuff, and that can be kind of. I guess I want to do more of a fellow Columbusite, Jeff Smith who did Bone. I want to give people more of that kind of thing. It's like, the most important thing is the characters and the story. That's it. There is a lot of background. He had a lot of background to it, but he didn't need to bring it up. There was rat creatures. I don't know if he ever even gave them an origin story, and I don't know because I didn't read all of the Bone stuff. But it's stuff like that. They obviously have an origin, but he didn't feel like he needed to spend 200 pages discussing their mystical origin or anything,
Yeah, I was going to actually ask you if your writing style was any way kind of like Hama's, just over how he does just sit there. He doesn't, no plots, no outlines.
No, I'm the
goes for it.
opposite.
Yeah.
My whole thing is I write too much, and then I've never had writer's block. Mine is more or less I write too much, and then I got to tear it down. I'm always in the process of tearing it down. Even now, I'm peeling away the layers of the onion to get to the middle of the onion. It's just the way it works, and it's because you can't. I don't think you can treat people as stupid, and you can be complex, and but it's like at the end of this day, my characters are what matters, and the stories is going to be what matters, and that's what I'm going to do.
Cool. I hope to see it one day.
Yeah, it should be soon. I mean, at least I can. I should be my plan is to be starting it this year. I don't want to spend another year not doing it. I don't. That's just the way it is. Because
is there a preemptive title?
Right now, my preemptive title is called Kings of Creation, and it's I've drawn on as much literary sources as I can from all types of myths and stuff like that to put together what I would call an antediluvian world, a world before there's a major flood and stuff like that. And to me, my idea of this flood that will come, which I'm never going to get to that point, but it's in the future for these people. It's going to be like 2012, where the whole planet is literally almost destroyed, like just ripped asunder and stuff like that. And that'll lead to us this day. Like how we live, but I'm not going to ever go into that. I'm just dealing with my characters who are living in that antediluvian world, and they're doing their lives. They're meeting all kinds of crazy creatures. But the main thing, my core is it's always going to be literary. Like if there's something in literature, for example, let's throw out a Sphinx. Something from Greek mythology, and I'm using a lot of mythologies. That character, I'm going to try to stick as much to the literary version of that character and pull that out and have it interact with the people.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's pretty wild. So, there's a lot. My main sources are, are always going to be like Hebrew myth. It's going to be, I throw in some Arabic. I even use some of the Mormon stuff because they got a whole thing going on with that. But the Greek myths and the Persian myths a lot, back from the Avestan days and stuff like that, the Avesta and stuff like that. I use a lot of that. So I've got things like the jinn, fairies. You name it. I pulled from Irish myth. I pulled from all of it, but I put it all. I've tried to make a melting pot of what that means, as far as characters go. So my elves are going to be a little bit different than elves in like Tolkien. My dwarves are going to be a lot different than the dwarves in Tolkien, that kind of thing. Yeah. So it's just about ripping down those myth themes and making them into something that people can actually enjoy seeing. And I'm not going over the same old ground. I'm like literally doing it from a literary standpoint, like how they're described in ancient literature, like ancient mythology, like how they wrote things. A lot of Sumerian stuff I'm using too, so you get a lot of that. So
that's way more thought. I'm like listening to that. It's like that's way more thought than anything that I'm attempting to write. Because like literally the stuff I'm writing is like, it's a cat, but he has a gun.
Yeah,
and that's it.
But see, explaining it like this would be boring unless I actually make the characters that I'm working on who interact with these things, I've got to make them like, fun, believable at the same time. They have fears, they have their own little foibles, they have trouble making up their minds on things. And then of course something happens, pulls them this way, pulls them that way. So the whole thing really is about just kind of being young and lost and not figuring out who you are in a world that's really big and trying to eat you alive. Yeah. So, it's that. Plus a lot of comedy. And by the way, I've brought Noodles back for this.
Hell yeah, Noodles. Yeah. We love Noodles.
Noodles is in it, yeah.
We love Noodles.
I figured it like this, one day I watched, you guys were watching Fairy Tale, and I forget, was it a cat they had in there? Yeah, and he talks. And then I thought, well, Meowth talks. I'm like, well, why can't I have that in my world? I can have a talking pterodactyl in my world. He's kind of like a stuffy, They're like, nobody even knows what he is, really. I mean, he looks like a pterodactyl, and you could jump up and down on him like, whatever. But at the end of the day, he's a stuffy, and, but he's living like a Muppet, Yeah. So he's making it. I figured that'll keep a lot of it light and stuff like that. He's just kind of the constant companion, always complaining about stuff or making some wry observation while everybody else is trying to be serious, that kind of thing.
So I guess just like to wrap it up, we'll do like some fun. We'll both like kind of pitch in on this. So the Holy Grail question, you never really got to is there any book out there that you like?
Okay. There is these huge, not huge. Okay. They got hardback, G.I. Joe reprints. They're like 10 issues each. And I think they released about, I want to say 7 or 8 of them. This was back when IDW had it. I'd love to get these because they published it with a commentary. What do you call those when you not an analogy? Yeah. It's kind of like how annotated. That's it. The guy who put it together for IDW makes notes of stuff because a lot of the people that would read this today, this is from the Vietnam era, okay, or post-Vietnam, I should say. So there's a lot of references Larry Hama makes to Vietnam and other things going on at the time, which would fly right over your guys' head. Most people that are younger, just like with Saturday Night Live, you try to watch old Saturday Night Lives, and they make their political humor, and you're like, I have no clue what they're talking about.
Sometimes I'll look it up.
Yeah,
Like, if it's
you
like
have to look it up.
if it's a
So that's what's neat about
75
these.
episode from
Originally,
1975,
these things
yeah.
were about $50. They're like the Marvel masterpieces, hardcover bound and stuff like that. Now they're just crazy money for them because IDW only put out so many, and everybody acts like they're gold bricks or something. But it's neat because, like I said, you not only get the Larry Hama comics, but you also get the annotation pages that explain like things, and like chronology and other things like you might not pick up on unless you had actually grown up with the comic like I did, and grown up in a post-Vietnam era and in a Cold War era too. A lot of you guys don't understand what a Cold War era is like, or the threat of like always nuclear war hanging over your head and all that stuff. So it was cool. Those are probably I would say those are my gold, or what do you call it? Your golden. Holy Grail, golden ticket, whatever, yeah.
So reach out to me if you have that. We can give it to Sean for free.
Yeah, hey, free's nice. I like free.
This is my calling card that I want. This is a book I know I'll never find it because it's like literally impossible to find. There was an eBay listing in 2001 for it. That's the only thing. Every few months, I'll give it a Google, and then that's
what is it?
It was a fanzine from 1974.
Oh.
It was it was called Conjure. They made one of them, and it was George Perez. He did a cover, and
it's that rare, huh?
It's it's like one of the earliest things like he worked on. And,
I thought my stuff was rare.
but there was 500 of them printed.
Okay,
so that's like, oh man, there's a chance,
Yeah,
500. So.
Well, I think it's like that with my with what I'm talking about, these hardcover G.I. Joes. You could get them, but everybody wants to. Everybody wants to like freaking act like they're freaking Fort Knox gold, I mean, come on. Okay, Conjure.
Yeah, I did a 6-page story.
Oh wow, half-naked women. What's going on there? What are they doing? Oh my gosh, I don't even want to. Oh my gosh, I can't explain this.
It's on pink paper.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
Wow. 75 cents, of course.
Yeah. I don't
back
know
in
the
the day.
sizes particularly, but I'm like,
never had that one.
One day I hope that's like a book that like. That'd be something if I could run into that. But.
I'll try to keep an eye out for it, but good luck with that, right? Sorry to yawn.
And then how about this? Like, we can do like we can each kind of like propose a Mount Rushmore. It can either be, you can have 4 people on it. It can be a character or a creator. It doesn't matter. Like the combination. If you were to construct like a Mount Rushmore-esque structure. Like who would be on your thing? 4 people, either a character or creator or something. Who would you?
Okay, well, I think that's pretty easy. Larry Hama, Art Adams, let's see, Frank Marshall, and Michael Golden. I mean, their stuff rocks. There'd be other guys I'd throw in there too, but those are the guys that affected me the most with my G.I. Joe run. And like I said, G.I. Joe's my number one just because I've collected them all. So I mean, I'm sure there's other stuff, but yeah, if I had to do a Mount Rushmore to, I guess G.I. Joe, that would be it. And America, rah rah, and all that stuff. Yeah, Jingoism, I love it.
Yeah, I guess mine obviously Perez.
Yeah, the Perez stuff. Yeah,
Steve Gerber.
Baby.
I'd have Steve Gerber and Howard the Duck next to each other. So that's 3.
Love Howard the Duck. I'm not gonna lie.
He would be on, and probably Kirby because
I don't care what people say. Howard the Duck movie that George Lucas did was gold. That was just
we talked about that.
Yeah, that is the best movie ever. And it should have been a bigger hit than Star Wars. I'm not lying.
Well, I think we're gonna wrap up. So
nipples on a duck. It's the only place you're ever gonna see it.
Yeah, it's cinematic.
A naked duck in a bathtub with nipples. All right, sounds good.
Thank you, Sean, for hanging out, talking about comics on purpose this time. For real.
You got it, Andrew. My pleasure.
All right.
All right, thanks, buddy. Bye.
All right, well, there you have it. The conversation with Sean Eley. It was a very lovely time, very lovely guy. Love talking comics, movies, TV, whatever. with the fella. Great to have him around. Thank you, Sean. Appreciate the time. So I will throw a little link to the DeviantArt of his. It has a bunch of scans of Pimento Brothers, Jurassic Jake, and this really stunning G.I. Joe 2-page story that's in there as well, among many, many other things. The guy has worked on a lot over the years. So, and it's all real fun. I encourage you to check it out. So, thank you again, once again. How about that? Last week we had the Myrtle Beach Show's spring preview. Yes, with Jimmy and Costin and man's best friend Devin Hopkins, of course. Went through all the shows that Myrtle Beach Shows and Fragile Life Records have put together for the spring. Went into very excruciating detail for each one, and of course got into some shenanigans along the way. So check that out if you would like. But of course I do have this stacked flyer filled to the brim with shows. So it wouldn't be a Windley Mania without going over it. So you have to follow at Myrtle Beach Shows, and there you will find that there's a lot of shows that go on at Myrtle Beach, but there's nothing like a Myrtle Beach show. So March 23rd at the Brick House Lounge, the Turn Forte release show, the record release, of course, Notes from a Lost Dog. And they'll be joined by Convalescent, Equal Creatures, and Clean Sweep at the Brick House Lounge. You can find tickets on the Eventbrite. Save some money before you get there. Don't have to fumble in your wallet or anything. So March 30th at Fresh Brewed Coffee House is Ocala, Schwick Potter, Busted Radio, and Brevity. April 6th, Candescent, Hollow God, Warning Order, Split in Two at Arcadia Studios, put together by Ryan, Fragile Life Records. April 13th, Bean God, Frank the Frog, Bisky Christ, and Sub X39 at Arcadia Studios. Excuse me. April 19th at Fresh Brewed Coffee House, Elderbright, Blink State, Rosary, and Orange Doors. May 18th, excuse me, geez. The first local show for Hymns of Blasphemy this year, along with Corrupt Faith, Death Tax, Call to Harm, and Sherry Vanilla at Arcadia Studios. And then March 25th, another show put together by Fragile Life Records, Team Deathmatch, Kill Card, Jiu-Jitsu, and Chained at Arcadia Studios. So, I am getting the coughs, so I really need to get the hell out of here. So follow at Myrtle Beach Shows. Keep up with the shows at Myrtle Beach. Follow at Windley_band. There's a lot of fun stuff coming up for this summer. Some shows in places we've never been before. And also, I saw that we have some really cool keychains with Ultima Windley. So buy it, buy it, buy it, buy it. And that's all. I hope you have a very lovely week. And see you. See you around. See you around the block. Bye-bye.